What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the top 3 best mercenary builds in Path of Exile 2. In this guide I will give you a quick overview of the best setups for both ascendancies, so Witch Hunter and the Gambling Legionnaire. Then I will explain what skill gems and upgrades should you focus on. Then as well we'll see what is the best gear and how to get it for both the mid game and end game. And then finally we will go over the passive tree, attributes, your skill rotations, and even what Atlas passive should you use, so we would be able to get the highest damage possible and much more. If you are looking for any of these builds on the website, then click my link in this video's description or the pinned comment. This setup's main focus is built around the Galvanic shards and the Shockbuster rounds, that both act as the shotgun skills, which as you can see from the gameplay can melt a ton of enemies in split seconds. This is currently for sure the best mercenary build in the game, as not only you can do massive amounts of damage, but also in the endgame with decent enough gear you can reach about 15,000 shield, which will turn you into an unstoppable melting machine. Our playstyle is built around the shock and the chain lightning, as Galvanic shards have an amazing clear speed, coming from the chains and the forks. Then the shock burst rounds have an insane single target damage, but will require shock, so that's why we consistently use the Stormcaller arrow, to get that crazy AoE buff and much more. If you want to use the crossbow as a shotgun and destroy enemies in seconds, then this is the one for you. So let me show you the build, and for the main class I have chosen to go with the Mercenary, and our ascendancy is the Witch Hunter. Then for the first skill we have the Galvanic shards with support gem called the Martial Tempo, Fork, Primal Armament and Long Shot. Then second we got the Shockbuster rounds with concentrated effect, Lightning Infusion, Heft and Elemental Focus. Then next we got the Stormcaller arrow with the Conduction, Fast Forward, Overcharge and the Lightning Exposure. Next we have the Emergency Reload with Ingenuity and Premeditation. Next up we have the Herald of the Thunder with Vitality, Cannibalism and Innervate. Next we got the Cast on Shock with Voltaic Mark, Conductivity, Persistence and Impetus. Then for one of the last ones we have the Ripfire Ballista with Font of Rage, Font of Blood and Ancestral Urgency. And finally for the last one we are using the Sorcery Ward with Lightning Mastery, Fire Mastery and the Cold Mastery. Most of this setup is structured around using the Galvanic shards and the Shock Burst rounds to delete enemies in seconds. So we use gems and skills that will support and increase their size and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you're interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at this armor and evasion node, then go like this until we get a battle hardened, heal no pain and the hard to kill. Next we want to keep moving forwards and get this whole thing, as well as this quick change act. Next up we want to go all the way to the end, and now move to the right and get both these lightning nodes called the Lightning Rod and the Flash Storm. Next up we want to circle back a little, and this time go to the left, all the way to here until we get to the Resolute technique. And this keystone is very important, which I will explain in just a second. And then from here we can go back all the way from where we left off, and then just keep going right, and from this point just unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again. And for Ascendancy build, this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Obsessive Rituals. Then next get Ceremonial Ablution. Then third we want the Zealous Inquisition. And then finally we want to go with the Pitiless Killer. Next up we have the Atlas passives. And the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as in expeditions or in rituals. Our mercenary build is also great at single target DPS, so we can also spend a bit of points into the farming boss maps or the essences. So when we start we wanna first of all get to the bottom left side like this. Then from here we go until we get all the way to this keystone called the Deadly Evolution. Then next we get back to the middle and this time take the top right side and get all of these passives. And then when all of these are done, then now we go again back to the middle, and this time take the middle path and unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. Next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Expert Forlorn Crossbow with crit and weapon speed. Our main goal here is to get a high DPS or hybrid physical and lightning damage setup. Also, a fast attack speed and low reload time is important as well. And for bonus stats we want physical damage, lightning damage, attack speed, life per enemy hit, and plus levels to all projectile skills. Then for the helmet we have the Expert Shielded Helm with armor and evasion. And for bonus stats we got increased armor and evasion, then even more armor, even more evasion and max life. Then for chest we have the Expert Scale Mail with the armor and evasion. And for bonuses we want increased armor and evasion, even more evasion rating and max life. Then for the belt we have the Plate Belt with a lot of armor and max life. As I mentioned at the beginning, we can get up to 15,000 armor. And as we are using the leather bound gauntlets node, that gives us even more evasion per every single armor stat, so this is incredibly useful for our build. Then for the gloves we got the Expert Molded Mitts with armor, and for more we need even more increased armor, max life and increased attack speed. Then for boots we're using the Expert Stack Sabotons with the armor and evasion. And for more we got increased movement speed, max life and increased armor and evasion. Then for our first ring we got the Death Rush. The main goal here is to find rings with added lightning damage, or if not then physical damage is also fine. However, this one is not mandatory, and you can choose other rings as well. But if you're looking for the best one in the slot, then this one for sure is the best, as it gives us insane amount of evasion and accuracy. Then also 5% life leech, and we also gain onslaught after every kill. While on the second one we have the Amethyst ring with chaos resistance, and for more we want lightning damage and max life. And then finally for the amulet we got the Lapis amulet with intelligence. And for more we want spirit, armor, max life, even more chaos resistances, and plus levels to all projectile skills. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is a starter setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. Then next we have runes. During early item progression, most gear is socketed with resistant runes, like the Desert Rune, Glacial Rune or the Storm Rune. However, once your elemental resistances have been capped, and elemental resistances are no longer necessary, then you want to opt in to increase your maximum life with body runes or consider socketing a soul core. So on our weapon we are using the Iron Rune. Then on the helmet we have the Glacial Rune, and then lastly on the rest of our equipment we are using the Storm Rune. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work, and I will give you 2 distinct rotations. So one for mapping / AoV mob farming, and then the second one for bosses. So first up we have our AoV rotation, and for most weak enemies you can just simply use the Galvanic shards by themselves, and it will already destroy 99% of the most enemies. However, if you run into a big stronger pack, then we again start with the Galvanic shards to proc them, but then afterwards use the shock burst rounds and blast them down even further. And then finally, if they're very tanky, then you can also use the emergency reload for bigger damage boost, but this will really depend on each situation separately. Or then for the second one we got our boss rotation, and this time we want to use the Stormcaller arrow to start proccing our shock. Then next we want to use the shock burst rounds with the emergency reload, and this combo should completely obliterate any monster. And then lastly we can also use the Ripwire Ballista before the boss spawns to get some extra free rage, but again this is very optional. This setup is known as the Grenade Gambling Legionnaire build that detonates gas grenades with a variety of detonator skills, such as the Explosive Shot or the Explosive Grenade, to create screen-wide explosions that can one-shot massive amounts of enemy groups. Offensively, we will be using the Gem-Studded Ascendancy, which will allow us to use 2 copies of any support gem, which greatly will improve our clear speed, utility, and single target damage. And then defensively, we get access to efficient armor evasion scaling, life recovery, and maximum resistance scaling or strength stacking. So when we combine all of this, we then can create this amazing build that has insane clearing speed and with this type of run and gun playstyle. So let me show you the build. And for the main class, we have the Mercenary, and our Ascendancy is the Gambling Legionnaire. Then for the first skill, we have the Gas Grenade with support gems such as the Scatter Shot, Elemental Focus, Magnified Effect, Payload, and Fire Infusion. Then second, we got the Explosive Shot with Fast Forward, Primal Armament, Magnified Effect, and Payload. Then next we got the Oil Grenade with Encumbrance, Strip Away, Maim, and Despoiler. Next we have the Explosive Shot with Nimble Reload, Martial Tempo, and the Soul Thief. Next we are also using the Flash Grenade with the Soul Thief, Overpower, Discombobulate, and the Heft. Next we have the Artillery Ballista with Ancestral Urgency, Fount of Rage and the Fount of Mana. Then we got the Wind Dancer with the Clarity, Cannibalism and the Precision. And finally, for our last one, we got the Alchemist Boon with no support gems. Most of this setup is structured around using the grenades to instantly delete enemies, so we use gems and skills that will support and increase their area and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next we have our passive tree, and if you're interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guides. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at this projectile damage node, and make our way like this until we get the Remorseless and the Volatile Cataclysm. Then now we continue going down here and only stop at this circle, and then we get this entire thing except this one single node. Then from here we continue making our way till this point, and then where this path splits we want to take the left, and then get these two called the Authority and the Crushing Judgment. Then afterwards we want to circle back a little and get all of these nodes that you can see right here. And then from this point and onwards we can make our way to the left side and get the rest of these nodes by using this same and exact path. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for our Ascendancy build this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Integrated Efficiency. Then next we take this, the Gem Studded, which will massively improve our build by giving us the option to use two same type of copy support gems. Then next we want to get the Thaumatic Infusion, that increases maximum cold, fire and lightning resistances. And then lastly we will take the Adaptive Capability, as most players can run into a gem attribute requirement problem, so we can solve it by getting this node. In PoE 2, earning skill points take a lot of hard work, so it will be wise not to spend your points recklessly. Of course, you can refund your passive points later, but only at a cost, so following a specific setup is extremely useful. If you are following this build, then make sure not to deviate from it, as some of the decisions that I made might not make sense at first, but is going to definitely pay off later. So feel free to use this exact same path as I have right here. And don't forget to check this video's description to find the link for this website, and this should make it easier for you to follow the tree. Next up we have our Atlas passives, and the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as in expeditions or in the rituals. So then when we start we want to first of all get this bottom left side like this, then now we want to go to the top right side and get all of these passives. And then finally from here you want to go to this top middle / top left side and get the rest of these passives in no particular order. Then next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Advanced Bombard Crossbow. This is the most important item as you want to acquire a high physical damage crossbow, ideally on this Advanced Bombard Crossbow, or as well you could get it on the Expert Bombard Crossbow for grenade skills firing an additional projectile. But with that said, if you got a different high physical damage crossbow on another item, then that can work as well, only if the damage is high enough. Then for the helmet we want the Advanced Spired Great Helm with armor, and for more stats we want accuracy, even more increased armor and max life. For our main gear we want to get good armor and evasion, and all type of resistances, so then we could cap our resistances at least 75%. Then for the chest we have the Expert Rogue Armor with armor and evasion, and for bonus stats we get max life, more armor and evasion, max life and cold resistance. Then for the belt we have the Utility Belt that recovers our flask 20% quicker. And for bonus stats we want more armor, max life and resistances like fire or lightning. Then for the gloves we got the Expert Layered Gauntlets with max life, max mana, more strength and lightning resistance. Then for boots we're using the Advanced Mail Sabotans with armor and evasion. And for bonus stats it's required that you get some type of movement speed and resistances like cold or chaos. Then for our first ring we got the Ruby Ring with fire resistance, and for more we want the physical damage, max life and max mana. While on the second one we got the Prismatic Ring with percentage to all elemental resistances, and for bonuses we want max life, more accuracy and fire resistance. And then finally for the amulet we got the Lunar Amulet with max energy shield, and for more we want the increased spell damage, more armor and increased critical hit chance. And now finally let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. So our detonator skills are the Explosive Shot or the Explosive Grenade, as they are used to detonate the poisonous clouds into the fiery explosions. Then we got the Oil Grenade, which applies a fire exposure and slows down a quick moving enemy. Then we got the Flash Grenade that blinds, stuns and shocks back swarming enemies. Then we also got the Wind Dancer, which will provide a 68% more evasion rating at the 4 Gale Force stages. And finally, we use the Ghost Dance with Energy Shield gear for additional defense versus a hard enemy encounter. So the general gameplay loop of this build is to fire as many gas grenades as necessary towards the target to create a poison cloud. Then next we want to detonate these poison clouds with either the explosive shot or the explosive grenade. So for more damage we use the explosive grenade, and for a quick explosion or to target the edge of the screen poison cloud, then use the explosive shot instead. Also, when you are surrounded or to preemptively stun and blind enemies, you can use the flash grenade. In boss fights, using a flash grenade will stagger and interrupt dangerous abilities, which has saved me many times from dying. This setup is very unique because we are going to be freezing enemies with the Permafrost bolts, which will give us frost fires, so then we will be able to drop explosive grenades that can detonate, and with the explosive shots we will do massive amounts of damage. This build is great against bosses and other large enemy groups, as we can CC the enemy while our fuse is going on, and then we can detonate our AoE skills and clear anything and everything in our way. So let's move over to the build. When you get to it, you want to pick the Witch Hunter Ascendancy, but if you're leveling, then the basic Mercenary class will work as well. And first we have our skills. So for the main spell we have the crossbow shot with no support gems. Then second we got the Permafrost bolts with support gems like the Glaciation, then the Ice Bite and also the Deep Freeze. We chose this skill because we want to push hard into the freezing effect. So then once we freeze our enemies, we can then drop a huge ignite on them with explosive grenade and do a huge amount of DPS. Then next we got the explosive grenade with support gems like the Frostfire, Concentrated Effect, Primal Arraignment, Eternal Flame and Searing Flame. This skill just got a huge buff in 80% physical to fire damage converter. So this will give us big ignites on the bosses and provide our build with fast clearing speed. Next we have Explosive Shot with support gems like the Wildfire and the Nimble Reload. Then next we have the Herald of the Ash with support gems such as the Clarity, Vitality and Precision. Then for Flash Grenade we got one support gem called Brutality. Then for high velocity rounds we have the Scattered Shot and Double Barrel. And then finally for our Galvanic shards we got support gems like the Lightning Infusion and Pierce. As most of our build is made around the Permafrost bolts and grenades, so we use gems and skills that will support and increase their damage, while the rest of our powerful filler skills we can use until our main rotation comes back up. Next up we have our passive skill tree. For most new players this can seem extremely daunting, but actually it's quite simple. A character is granted one passive skill point every time they level up, and are sometimes even granted more from completing certain quests. In extremely simple terms, at the top we have the Intelligence section, which focuses on spell damage, summoning and elemental damage. Then we have the bottom right, which is Dexterity section and is more focused on ranged combat, evasion and speed. And then finally we have the bottom left, the Strength section, which is more melee and defense oriented. Then next we have the passive nodes, and they are split into two categories. The small passives that grant minor bonuses such as small increase to attack speed, spell damage, melee damage or attributes. And then second we have the notable passives. These are slightly larger passive points that grant greater bonuses than the smaller ones, but they have stats on them that are often closely related to the small passives leading up to them. So think of these as checkpoints to work towards. And then on top of this we have the third passive point, but which is not entirely compared to the two others. So for the third one we have the Keystones. These are build changing, character defining points that often provide a massive amount of power with a downside, but these downsides can be reduced or worked towards. So we want to start at the projectile damage node and go like this until we get these three notable nodes. Then next we work towards here and get these two more nodes. Then afterwards go like this and get that entire right side. Then now keep going down until this circle, and then we take the right and get that whole right side, starting with instant reload and all the way up till wasting. Then now we come back to this path and get that whole circle. And then from here we just keep going down and take whatever node you want, as long as you follow this path exactly in the way that you see here. To simplify my decision making, then basically we want to prioritize instant reload first, because reload speed will give us the biggest build upgrade, so we want to get it first. Then also, once you have explosive grenade and explosive shot skills, then start taking the grenade node and grenade reload speed. Then next our path down to the crossbow wheel at the bottom is made for more damage, and the Leatherbound's gauntlet and the general's binding is for more defense. And then finally, for the rest of our nodes, they are meant for once you go Ignite, which will increase our damage and other ailments. Next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Advanced Dyad Crossbow, with stats like the critical, speed, and min and max physical damage. For prefixes, we have a load and additional bolt, increased physical damage, add to physical damage, and add to fire damage. Then for helmet we have the Shielded Helm, with stats like the armor and evasion. Then for chest we have the Advanced Explorer armor with the armor and evasion. Then for belt we have the mail belt with reduced flask charges. Then for gloves we got the bolstered mitts with armor. Then for boots we are using the stacked sabotons with the armor and evasion. Then for our first ring we got the ruby ring with fire resistance, while on the second one we got the sapphire ring with cold resistance. And then finally for the amulet we get the jade amulet with dexterity. As the game just launched, so this is a starter setup, which should be more of an example with stats and prefixes to look for. Your weapon will be the most important upgrade to look for, so prioritize flat damage of any type. Specifically, the physical roll will be the most important, as your skills themselves will do a lot of conversion. Also, once you start investing more points into the passive skill tree, then you will want to look for stats like the flat physical and flat fire damage. Attack speed is also helpful as it improves your reload speed. For defenses, make sure you're regularly updating the base type of your gear, so look for increased armor on gloves to get the best use of our leather-bound gauntlet node, which gives 1 evasion per every 1 armor, and then go with armor/evasion hybrid for all the other items. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. So for bossing on large rare enemies, we want to start the rotation by using the Permafrost bolts, which freezes them and gives us the full bonus from the frost fire. Then afterwards, we drop explosive grenades and either way wait for the fuse or hit them with the detonator skill, which does not have a consume freeze support on it. And for this, in this rotation, I'm using the explosive shot. And then from here, we want to finish it off with the high velocity rounds and or galvanic shards. And then the rest of our skills are filler spells, which we can use until we get back our main DPS rotation. So, if you enjoyed this video, click like, subscribe and comment. If you are interested in more content, then check out my channel and I will see you in the next one. So take it easy, peace.